Okay. All right, we back in here. So, uh, Manchester United out of the Carabao Cup in round two, away to Grimsby Town, 2-2 in 90 minutes, 12-11, I believe it was, on penalties, and hilarious game, especially considering the circumstances surrounding the club and what that means for the future of Ruben Amorim. I mean, let's say this happened in a period where Manchester United are, in a better situation as a club on the pitch. It would still be really funny, but considering where they are at this moment in time, it just becomes a diabolical situation for them. I mean, we'll start, I guess, with the match itself and then what it means for Ruben Amorim and Manchester United moving forward this season. But to start, I guess we're going to start with Andre Onana to begin with, because he was at fault for both goals, in my opinion, and probably everybody else's opinion as well. To start with, going down to 2-0 to a League Two side is completely unacceptable, and should never happen under any circumstance, barring like two red cards or something like that. I mean, I don't know. But, back to the two goals. I mean, the first one, the Grimsby Town player takes the ball. It was off a giveaway, I think. And then eventually an over-the-top ball finds its way to the Grimsby Town player, who takes it down on the first touch and places it in the bottom corner. But Onana had it covered and just didn't get down to save the ball. It just seemed like he was falling in slow motion. I don't know. Like, he should have saved it. And then the second goal, I mean, there's absolutely no excuse to just miss the ball in the air. He completely misjudges it. I think Manchester United probably have the two worst keepers when it comes in the Premier League when it comes to claiming crosses, corners, aerial passes and crosses in that way. I mean, the goal probably should have been disallowed. If there was VAR, it probably would have been. The Grimsby Town player handballed it before eventually scoring, but who cares? I mean, Onana completely missed the ball. That happens in any other situation. It's a goal. It doesn't get disallowed even with VAR. It was incredible to see. In terms of Andre Onana, we'll get onto the penalties later, which is a whole different situation. But this was probably his last game for the football club. I mean, I can't imagine that he'll get another opportunity to start again. It looks like they're bringing in a keeper within the next day or so, and Binder will be the number 2, who isn't very good himself. But, besides the point, it's kind of crazy to see the fall off of Onana, because, a few years ago he was in an Ajax team that made a run to, I believe it was the semifinal, if I'm not mistaken. And then he leaves for Inter Milan, who make the Champions League final and lose 1-0 to a Manchester City side. And, he's brought in as the successor to a club legend, I would argue, in David De Gea, and because of his ball-playing ability. Except he gives the ball away with his feet time and time again, as we've seen. And then, in terms of saves and claiming crosses, all the basic things you would expect of a goalkeeper, he just has completely proven to be inept at. I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's gotten to this point with him. I don't see a way that he comes back from this at all. It was already looking like he wasn't going to be a part of the United future, even as a number 2. But now this game, I mean, against the League Two side, to be the worst player on the pitch solidifies it, in my opinion. And then moving on to the rest of the game, Ruben Amorim, not creating many chances against Arsenal is one thing. Not creating many chances against Grimsby Town is another. Even though they rotated, right, there still is no excuse for not creating, for the lack of creation in terms of their chances in this match. I mean, he's shown at this point that not only is he unwilling to move from the three at the back, he's completely rigid in the system, period. There's no tactical flexibility at all with him when it comes to this 3 at the back system. Prime example being in the second half, when he takes off Mason Mount, brings on Mason Mount and takes off Aiden Heaven. I was thinking, okay, maybe he's finally going to afford the back, or at the very least, he's going to adjust the system in some way. But no, what happens? Mount goes into the left wing back position, and Diogo Dallo, who started at right wing back and then later moved on to the left at halftime when he brought off Dorgu, moves back to left center back. Like, what are we doing? Like, there's really... It's completely baffling to me, in my opinion, to end the game with Mason Mount, who is either a left-sided 10 in this system, or maybe a double. If you want to force him to that double pivot role, I guess he can do that, do a job there potentially. But playing him out wide on the touchline and expecting him to affect the game in a positive way is just complete lunacy, in my opinion. That's crazy to me. And then one of the other subs he made was bringing on Harry Maguire. At this point, for Ruben Amorim, Harry Maguire has all of a sudden become an offensive sub. He's become a super sub for this team. I mean, what is that? When they were chasing a goal in the Fulham game at the weekend, he brings on two center backs, one of them being Harry Maguire, so that he can be the target man in corners and crosses and all of that today. And I guess technically that worked out today, but considering the amount of attacking options that have been brought in the past couple of years in Manchester United and the quality of it as well, there's no excuse for that. I mean, spent a couple $100 million on Sesko, Brian Mbeumo, Mateus Cunha. Considering they also have Joshua Zirkzee on the team, they have Mason Mount, Bruno, who I've said this before, and everybody has said this at this point as well. Not saying I'm the originator, don't take it that way, but he's being forced as a square peg into a round hole. He's not a double pivot player. He's more of a 10, a final ball player. And all those attacking options, and your attacking sub is to bring on Harry Maguire. I don't know. In terms of the two goals that they brought back, it was a good drive with the ball from Mbeumo and a good finish into the bottom corner. And then that second goal from Harry Maguire off a corner. I can't remember if it was a short corner and then a cross or just a cross. I don't remember that part exactly, but Harry Maguire did good to get up, and obviously being brought on as a target man did his job. But if I had to say, them bringing that game back to 2-2 and sending it to pens wasn't due to the manager. If I had, it's pretty clear that was due to individual brilliance, them overcoming the lack of effectiveness that the system has had for this team. And it again brings up the point that Ruben Amorim is completely unwilling to adjust the system or move off of the system. Like, it has to be one or the other. You can't just keep playing this 3-4-3 with two 10s and expect the same results when it clearly doesn't fit the players that you have. And we'll get on to some of the holes that Manchester United have in a bit, but if you're unwilling to adjust your tactics to help your team perform better, you don't deserve to still be in a job. And that's clear, in my opinion. Moving on to the penalties, everybody had to go a second time around, and I don't blame Brian Mbeumo for missing that pen. I mean, it is what it is. You're in a penalty shootout. Anything can really happen. The one thing I will say is that I don't think any of the Manchester United players had any confidence, or the supporters or anybody watching really had any confidence in Andre Onana in that penalty shootout. I mean, I will be fair to him a little bit. It should have ended in 5 penalties. He had a good save in that first 5 from that left-footed player, where he had a good save that he parried onto the bar, and then it went away. But the irony being, Mateus Cunha, one of the big money signings, that was a terrible pen that he took. I think Vitinha had something like this in the past year, where he kind of stutters and then plays the ball just barely either side of the keeper. I mean, I don't know what that was from Mateus Cunha. It's funny. Mateus Cunha misses it in the first five. Brandon Bumwell is the one that misses the pen that eliminates them. And then Sesko, the big money number 9, coming into the summer, being the last outfield player to take a penalty before Andre Onana takes one. The keepers take one. What is that about? So I'm not going to speak to whether he is a penalty taker for, or if he was a penalty taker for any of his previous clubs or the national team. I'm not sure, but that does seem a bit odd to me that, I understand not being in the first 5, but not being in the first 6 or 7 penalty takers for the team. It's kind of, a bit peculiar, I would say. And then I remember turning to my brother and saying, it would be funny if Andre Onana is the one who has a stinker all game and then is the one to eliminate United by missing his penalty. Because, in the penalty shootout, he should have had 3 or 4 saves. I mean, saves, I don't know. He got his hand to 4 penalties. And one of those penalties was straight down the middle. He's diving away from it. And he gets his hand to it, reaching back. And the ball doesn't even change trajectory. It just goes straight through his hand. And you're just thinking, what are we even doing here? Because if any of the Grimsby Town players just put the ball on target, put their penalty on target, it's going to go in. And, the other thing is that Kobbie Mainoo, who didn't have the best game, obviously, but considering the transfer rumors of him moving away, I was like, man, that would suck if he was the one to miss a penalty too. It just seems like a terrible situation all around. And, the irony being, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, they entered this match in the second round, and all the clubs in the Premier League who are in Europe this season don't enter until the third round. So I don't know, the situation that Manchester United currently in is kind of crazy in my opinion. And then moving on to what it means for their future this season. I mean, they're already out. They weren't in Europe. They're out of one cup. They're obviously not going to win the Premier League. So now that all they have for success this season is qualifying for Europe or winning the FA Cup. And through the first couple weeks of the season, I don't know how anybody can have any confidence that this manager can get this team there. I mean, forget the rest of the season. Does anybody have any confidence that they'll get a result versus Burnley at the weekend before the international break? I think at this point, if it was me, I would consider sacking him after the Burnley game, regardless of how the match goes, because falling behind in order to qualify for Europe at the end of the season, you can't fall too far behind. And for Ruben Amorim himself, I mean, if he's going to be unwilling to not only move off his tactic but adjust it in any way, I don't see a reason how this gets any better considering the clear holes that United have in their squad. I mean, just looking at it, they still have a keeper issue, which it looks like they'll solve in the next day, to be fair to them. But beyond that, they have an inadequate midfield for the system that he wants to play, a double pivot, and having 2 men completely patrol the midfield is obviously not going to work because they don't have the legs for it. They don't have a Baleba, who was a big target of them, which we'll see if they still go back in for him or find a way to get that transfer done. But as it stands, they don't have the legs for it. Their best prospect at the club, Kobbie Mainoo, doesn't fit the system. So what are we doing there? Their theoretically most talented and best player, Bruno Fernandes, is being shoehorned into that same position that Kobbie Mainoo isn't fit for, because they have big money signings ahead of him in the positions that he is fit for. And so as a result, in order to get those big money signings in, who are, by the way, are very talented, but if you're going to play them there and then fit your captain into a position that he's not his best at, I don't know what we're doing there. One of their big money signings, Brandon Bumwell, clearly probably in this system maybe fits that touchline right wing back better, the same way Ahmad does. And so it becomes this situation where you either have too many players for one position or not enough for one. And prime example of that is, I was thinking about this during the match. I was like, so when he brought off Patrick Dorgu and moved Diego Dallo to left wing back, I was like, okay, but who else could he play there? Because if we're thinking about it, this team for this system only has one natural wing back at the club because Malacia is gone. Because when we're thinking about it, Patrick Dorgu, left wing back, who could come in for him? The two solutions that we've seen so far is Diego Dallo, who isn't even adequate on the right side for right wing back. He's more of a fullback and a 4. And then the other solution that they had today was to bring Mason Mount in at left wing back, which is completely ridiculous to me in my opinion. So I don't know. And then Ahmad, who is naturally a touchline winger, the wing back position fits him a little bit, to be fair to him. He does fight defensively and has a good enough work rate to make that work when it's necessary, but that's probably not what he wants to be doing either. And so it just seems like a shambles all around. And then, they have to inevitably fall into like a mid or low block because they can't press high enough because they don't have the legs in midfield to cover all that space. Their center backs aren't aggressive enough stepping into midfield to help the opposition and go more help the midfield and go man for man against the opposition defensively. And it just seems like the writing is on the wall at this point for Ruben Amorim. There's no way I can see him lasting. I think they'll probably give him until the October international break, but they probably should sack him after the Burnley game this weekend, going into the September international break. But we'll see what happens this weekend. I hope I don't have to keep talking about Manchester United in this way, even though it was kind of fun. I would prefer being a little bit more neutral, but we'll see. I will be back probably with a Chelsea match preview against Fulham this weekend in the next day or so. That video will be coming out. We'll see. But in any case, I appreciate you watching, and we'll talk soon. Bye.